Jim Trotter, welcome to Ladies
What's
First
up,
Friday.
ladies?
We
What's
love it when you're
up?
with us.
Welcome.
You guys know I love being with you guys. So happy to be here.
Thank you. So that was Saquon Barkley. And, I think he said so much. I really wish I could have played more of what he was saying. And I don't mean to sound like one of those people who's like, I want to be very careful how I say this, but I was just very impressed with his knowledge of like his contract situation, negotiating his value, his worth, how he discussed it. And I wish that all players were like basically as knowledgeable as him. He talked about his value in relation to the cap. Like, why would we be thinking about what something was, so many years ago because the cap has gone up? He just talked about a lot in there that we couldn't even include. But I thought it was a great discussion. And there's been this quote, Jim, that's been going around because, it was like, oh, he may sit out. And it was something he discussed, but the way the quote was sort of presented, it was almost like it didn't tell the full story. So that's why I thought it was important for us to include everything he said there, because he really wasn't threatening to sit out. He's just like, that would be his leverage play, but he's not really sure that he wants to do that. So I just thought it was fascinating, a number of the things he said. And I wanted to understand from you, Jim, what are your thoughts? Do you think there's a chance he would sit out? And how do you see this situation playing out?
No, I don't think he sits out at all. I think you could tell even during that interview that that's not the direction he was leaning. Now, that could always change, but I don't see that happening. Here's the other thing. Even if the Giants at this point wanted to get a long-term deal done with Saquon, they can't. They're prohibited under the collective bargaining agreement from negotiating a long-term deal with him until after this season now, because the deadline is passed. So we are where we are as it relates to that situation. Everything he said is true about understanding his value to the team, but the reality is that doesn't matter at this point. It is a business. The Giants have made a decision not to pay him on a long-term deal at this point, just as the Raiders have made that decision on Josh Jacobs. Both of them are the heart and soul of their offenses, but for this year, they're going to have to play under the franchise tag, or if they choose not to come in, they're going to lose money that they're never going to regain.
Do you think, Jim, that, when people say that they put on the franchise tag, that essentially is one big FU to a player, right? It's basically telling them, we don't have to pay you or we don't have to offer you something big in that case. When you think about, even if he has to get a contract extension after this season, the relationship seems broken now, right? In that same podcast, and, Saquon talked about he appreciated John Mara talking to him like a man. And coming to him, and he respected the fact that he was talking to him about business and wanting to extend that, and that was a fruitful conversation. And then in February...
Oh, Zena, I think you froze for a moment.
A franchise.
Yeah, look, I think I understand where you were going with this. The relationship may seem fractured, but I would argue that it's
blistered things a bit. Oh.
Yeah, I would argue that it's not fractured. I've seen too many instances where players or teams have let their feelings get in the way for a moment, and then in the end, there's this kumbaya moment, and they all come together. I think if Saquon ultimately gets what he wants after this season, if the Giants step up and pay him, everything will be fine, and this will be forgotten. But right now, it's raw. And as he said, he's human. He has those moments where his real feelings start to come out, but he's mature enough to stop himself from addressing that on social media, and I applaud him for that. But no, this is just the nature of negotiations, unfortunately, in business. And let me say this. The problem I have with all of this was what happened in 2011 during the collective bargaining agreement, when the union basically threw running backs under the bus. Because what happened was the owners wanted a rookie wage scale. And Gene Upshaw, the previous executive director of the NFLPA, would never give it to the owners because he said a rookie is only a rookie for 1 year, and after that, he is a team leader and a team captain. Well, DeMaurice Smith gave that up in his first term, his first negotiation as NFLPA executive director. And my thing was, if you were going to give them a rookie wage scale, on the front end controlling their costs, then these players have to be able to make that money up on the back end. And when you give owners a 4-year guarantee plus a 5th-year option plus 3 years to franchise a player, if you're a running back and the average career span according to the NFLPA is just over 3 years, you are never going to see the open market if you are a talented player. And that is simply unfair to these players. But the players agree to it. So in essence, they have no one to blame but themselves.
Yeah. Yeah, the players and their collective bargaining is always something I think to look at and question. I just wonder, Jim, how did we get to the point where the running back position has become so devalued? And what, I mean, I don't think he should sit out. I don't see any purpose in that. But what purpose would it serve for him to sit out? Like, is he, I mean, the Giants have to know his value. I mean, he said it on there, like, I account for 40% of the offense, something around that number. But like, I get it that like all running backs aren't created equal, but he is one of the best. According to him, he's the best in the National Football League. So when we know that a running back of his caliber is worth more, why do we have to keep going through this?
Because the system is set up in such a way that teams can take this position. It's always fascinating to me how teams say, well, we can't pay a guy because traditionally in precedent says you don't pay a player at this position this amount of money. But if you flip it, and a player outperforms a situation, or you see a Deshaun Watson get a fully guaranteed contract, and then Lamar Jackson may say, I want that. And the team says, well, no, we can't do it because it's never been done. But here it's just been done for Deshaun. So that doesn't fit. So the teams try and play it both ways here. The thing that's unfortunate for me is, again, running backs, if they are talented, and as you say, there are different levels to running backs. They are not all created equally. And their value goes beyond just their ability to run the football or score touchdowns or even catch passes. One of the most important things for a running back in today's game is pass protection. Because if you can't protect that quarterback, who is the most important player on that field, the chances of you succeeding are not very good. Saquon Barkley, Josh Jacobs, these guys are complete running backs, and so therefore they should be paid. But the system is such that teams don't have to, and they choose not to in this instance. And we've now gotten to a point where if Josh Jacobs or if Saquon were to decide not to sign their tenders and to sit out this year, could they make a point? Yes. But is it going to change anything? I just don't see it.
Yeah. So, Jim, I wonder, I sort of said, like, it seems personal for Saquon Barkley, and it should be. And I say that because, like, he removed the Giants. He removed the Giants from his bio. And I know you mentioned that, like,
Deebo Samuel did the same thing, didn't he? With the 49ers, I think.
I feel like that's the new move. That's the new move for all athletes, to indicate that they're over the situation, or to posture like, this is me establishing my power, my strength, and removing you. Yeah, it's definitely a thing.
And look, he indicated that he wants to stay with the Giants, like his family's from there. He's like in that area. So you're right. It probably will eventually just all work out. But, I just kind of always, he kept trying to express during the podcast, like, you got to be mature. You can't take it personally. But why can't you take it personally? Like, I just never understand this always, it's business, it's not personal. Like, it's personal, you're questioning my value. You're not paying me my worth. It's personal. And so I don't have a problem with him sort of reacting in this way, but it just seems unfortunate because it feels like the players' hands are tied and there's just nothing they can do.
Yeah, I think when they say you can't take it personal, what they're really saying is that you can't let emotion impact business decisions. And so you don't want to do anything that's going to hurt your standing or your ability to get where you want to get in that sense. So for Saquon and Josh, absolutely it should be personal because, again, they are the heart and soul of their respective offenses. They did put up incredible numbers last year. They do deserve to be paid better than they are being paid under the franchise tag. But again, the system is what it is, and unless they're willing to fight that, I see them playing under the franchise tag this year.
Yeah. And also, on that point, I actually think Saquon will play because these types of things also impact who you are off the field. And we know Saquon to be kind of like a marketing darling, right? He's got deals with Dunkin', Nike, Pepsi. I mean, the list goes on. And if you're sitting out a year, that does impact your value and how those brands see you. Even though, yes, it could probably make up that $10 million that he won't get, it still will impact the ability for those extensions of those partnerships to extend. So I definitely see him playing as well, just to not impact how he's seen off the field as well.
Yeah, if I could say this, the one thing that truly bothers me in this entire situation is the way the NFL is set up, and that players are paid based on the position that they play. In no other sport is your salary tied to the position that you play. In basketball, if you are the most impactful player and you play center or you play guard or you play forward, you get paid the most money. Theoretically, that's how it works. No one says, well, you can only make this much because you're a guard or a center or a forward. Same thing in baseball. But in football, a guy like Saquon and a guy like Josh Jacobs can be the most impactful player on their team. And yet, I think Josh Jacobs, in terms of salary cap allocation, is going to rank 6th or 7th on the Raiders. That's not right. To me, guys should be paid based on their impact and contributions to their team, but that's not the system set up in the NFL, and that's really unfortunate.
Yeah, that's actually an excellent point. I would say in the NBA that is true theoretically, though. You don't get paid as much for your defense as offense. And like those defensive players who can be very impactful on your team, they will just never, you know, we're going to get to this team later that we all know and love, the Warriors. But like some would argue that Draymond Green was always a more impactful player than Klay Thompson, but he would never get the salaries Klay Thompson got because it was his defense and not offense. So, but I agree with you that the salary should be based on your impact. And we have lots of measures now to determine impact and what's, you know, affecting winning. And I think we got to sort of move away from these ideas like, oh, you're a running back, or, you know, this role just doesn't get paid as high because it's not, you know, like look at the team and what's your value to the team. And if your value is tremendous, then you should get paid for that. So always great talking with you, Jim Trotter, but there's other news in the NFL.
Hey, thank you for watching Brother from Another. If you haven't hit that subscribe button, go ahead and do that now. Don't forget you can catch us 3 to 4 weekdays on PeacockTV.com and on Sirius XM Channel 85.